welcome to India first.
Thank you.
How is your visit going on? You were here for the Prime Minister's address. We heard him from the ramparts of the Red Fort. How do you see that?
Well, it was an amazing honor to be there. This is where Nehru famously raised the tricolor on Indian Independence Day on August 15th, and to stand there in front of the Red Fort to see Modi give his address to his nation was an amazing honor. And I thought it was also incredible to hear him lay out a vision for India to be a fully developed nation by 2047, the 100th year anniversary, and his plan to achieve that. I thought it was a very strong speech, and it was an honor to be there.
So Prime Minister Modi had a very successful visit to United States in June, and we're also expecting President Biden here for the G20.
Right.
How do you see the relationship between both the countries, especially when it comes to the defense sector?
Sure. Well, you have Prime Minister Modi addressing the United States Congress for the second time. I believe only the fifth leader in history to do that. Then you have President Biden coming here for the G20, and then also the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, will also be coming in October. So these are some very high-level, meaningful engagements from both countries, and that speaks to how strong the relationship is becoming. On the defense side, I serve on the Armed Services Committee. I'm a veteran of the Army. There were some very strong deals. The GE engine deal I was very happy to see. Predator, or the MQ-9 drones called Sea Guardians. I believe the only country outside of NATO that we have sold those drones to. And other types of defense cooperation, I believe, will help India's capacity to defend itself, to continue to stand strong on its own, and to be a key partner in the Indo-Pacific.
And how do you see India's Make in India initiative?
Well, it's certainly understandable. Any country will want to be able to defend itself on its own, and to make its own defense equipment. So I certainly think the United States and our industry will work with the Indian industry for co-production. It's at the top of my list when my discussions with the Minister of Defense and with the Prime Minister. Where do they see the best co-production opportunities that our industry, Indian industry, can work together? I think when they work together, both countries work together.
So as we speak, Malabar exercise is going on, hosted by Sydney, of which India and US both are part of. How do you see how important is this exercise, especially when we know that we have China, which is aggressive in the Indo-Pacific, and also we have some issues with China in the northern border? How do you see that?
Well, it's incredibly important. It's one thing to make the equipment together, but it is even more important to operate it. The radios, the technology, the aircraft, the ships, the tanks, the planes, all of those things, how you operate it, your doctrine as we speak, the interoperability, understanding how the planning, the tactics, the operations on both sides come together, is what these exercises are about. And as China is increasingly aggressive, unfortunately, it's really the Chinese Communist Party, not its people, but the government, that is continuing to be aggressive in the South China Sea, in the Indian Ocean, its relationships with countries like Pakistan, and on the line of control on India's border. We're seeing aggression all around. So we need to work together in every aspect, I think, to deter that type of aggression, and have the Chinese Communist Party know that we are standing together as like democracies for free and open Indo-Pacific.
So these countries are also part of the Quad grouping.
Right.
For countries of which China calls it a military alliance. What are your views on that?
Well, that's what China calls it. I think it's much broader than that. One of the key recent deliverables from the Quad gathering actually was for educational exchanges. So it's educational, it's cultural, it's in space, it's in technology. But these are four key economies and countries and democracies in the Pacific, and we will work together across a number of sectors, including the military, but not just the military.
So just last two questions. There has been some attacks in the Indian mission in USA by Khalistani separatists.
Yeah.
What will you say on that?
Well, I have condemned, with my colleague Ro Khanna, we've condemned those attacks any type of violence along those lines are unacceptable, and it certainly is unacceptable on American soil.
Right. So last question. India is the president of G20 this year. In September, we'll see all the presidents and prime minister coming here. This at a time when there is already Russia-Ukraine war is going on.
Yeah.
How do you see India's presidency, and how do you think that India can bring a difference on the table?
Well, I think one of the things that India can speak to is the role of energy and the role of energy security on the global stage. And, I have been one to push for energy independence for all nations, so they're not dependent on another like we've seen with Europe and Russia, and that is a mix of oil, natural gas, renewables, nuclear across the board. And then I also think India can be a real leader in new technology, whether that's biotech, artificial intelligence, new types of renewable energies that they've been developing. I think from an engineering, from a STEM standpoint, India truly has become a global leader. But how do we transform that into policies that all of our nations can really come around and get behind? So I'm looking forward to their leadership and looking forward to what comes of that meeting.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Al. Thank you for speaking
Thank
today.
you.